A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I begin with the name of the one who is most merciful and most compassionate. I'd like to extend my gratitude and greetings of peace to India Foundation, to Bureau of Police Research and Development, and the government of Haryana for hosting this great platform where experts from our global counter-violence and counter-terror narratives and our own security personnel who are here, our elders from the armed forces. So greeting of peace to all of you. Considering the time limitations and the importance of this forum, I would just like to go through some very important points, what I have noted down from yesterday. And the place that I come from, that is Ajmer Sharif, most of you know about it, heard about it, and a great Indian spiritual tradition of the Chishty Sufi order that has been serving humanity from last 800 years. Growing up in Ajmer Sharif has been a privilege. At the same time, it's a great learning experience. On our daily interactions, we grew up learning not only about Islamic spirituality or the traditions that we follow, but at the same time, the multi-faith tradition and people coming from all faiths, from the Hindu spiritual traditions or the Sikh traditions or all the faiths that are nurtured and grown to the day that we celebrate the diversity in India. So that's the daily interaction that we grew up in. I did my schooling at the Catholic school at St. Anselm's, and after my schooling days, the first instance of me encountering with the outside world was my graduating years in Mumbai University. Interestingly, it was there with one of my colleagues who was also a Muslim, but when I told him about that I come from Ajmer Sharif, and he looked at me in a very strange manner. That was my personal experience of this ideological challenges that we are talking about here. Then he said that you come from a place which is not part of mainstream Islam. And I was very surprised to learn that what is he talking about? A place which is revered not only by Muslims, but all faith, not from now, but from last 800 years. And this man, a young man who's my classmate, he's an ill-informed person who have no idea about the historical or the spiritual values of the faith that he professes, that he believes that he's following. And precisely in today's world, when we look around the world, the problem of challenges of these radical outfits who profess or claim to be from the Islamic background or Islamic faith, but they themselves are denouncing and discrediting the faith that they're pronouncing. Recently, in 2015, when we were planning to organize an important event which formally took place under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi Sahab. He was the keynote speaker. It was first time in the history of independent India that the World Sufi Forum, which was organized by us and All India Mashayikh Board, where we gathered about 200 Sufi leaders from around the world, along with the spiritual leaders from India, from Kashmir to South India, at one platform. So I'm going to just share a few of the notes which was shared by the Honorable Prime Minister during his keynote speech, which became the headlines, not only in India, but around the world. This is what happens when global leaders took the initiative of acknowledging and appreciating the spiritual traditions of any faith, as we believe that spirituality has the power to eliminate extremism and all these radical brainwashing, which has been kind of a way of recruiting the youth from any faith perspective. When Prime Minister Modi spoke at the World Sufi Forum, he said that we must reject any link between terrorism and religion. That was his word. He categorically denied that religion cannot be termed as part of any terrorist activity or motivating factors. Another instance that he said that there are 99 names of Allah which have been recited or mentioned in the Quran, and none of them stand for violence. So that again made a headline, and also it was a clear message, not only to India, but to the world, that when you are looking at countering the ideologies of terror, you have to be aware that this is not an attack or this is not coming from a religious point of view. So the message of Sufism was not just contained or combined in combating terrorism, but to encompass the creed of Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas. That was Prime Minister Modi's words at World Sufi Forum. Because truly, when we talk about the Islamic spirituality and the values that we have learned in Ajmer Sharif, it's about khizmat-e-khalq, service toward humanity. And the langar that is served inside the Dargah Ajmer Sharif, not from now, but from last 800 years, it's a pure vegetarian langar, where people can come together, sit on the same platform, and cherish and nourish themselves with the sacred meal that is served. So the elders have always been very conscious about the heart and the feelings of human being, that none of your action or word should break a human heart. So, continued to his presentation, fight against terrorism must be won through the strength of our values and real message of spiritual traditions from all faith perspectives. Small gestures. Recently, when I was going through some of the news, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the new BJP headquarters, and during his speech, he took a pause when the azan was being recited. It was a very small gesture, about a minute of pause during his speech. But when I was going through the social media responses to that, some youth from South India, they tweeted in Hindi, I would say that ek hi dil hai hamara, kitni baar jeetoge, Prime Minister Modi. So these small gestures, when you acknowledge and give respect to the traditions that encourage the youth and also the people of different communities to come closer, and also the fuel that has been used by these radical terrorists, that has also been taken away. Because what they do, they portray an image of suffering through some policies or some orientations that particular country or particular leadership is against the faith. And they're making policies to suppress the faith. So this is one of the recruiting propaganda that comes across the line when we talk about these ideological challenges. Being in Ajmer Sharif and having represented India from last 10 years since I've been taking the Gaddi Nashin after my father, Rahmatullah, passed away, in almost 40 countries we have represented India. And it talked about immense forums, how interfaith dialogue and the understanding of clearing the concept of ideological differences that arises will help in a great deal in making the path very clear. We were in Washington in about 2015, and during one of the conferences, we had an interaction with the State Department, then the Obama administration. You must have all read about a gesture of President Obama sending a chadar, a holy covering, at Ajmer Dargah. That was the first happening from any Western leaders, an acknowledgement of Indian Sufi orders and Ajmer Sharif by sending this greeting of peace at the Urs of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. What has happened during that acknowledgement, and there are conversations that I spoke with the representative of the State Department, that you are making policies and you're spending billions of dollars in CVE programs, counter-violence extremism, but an acknowledgement and gesture of peace which will not cost you more than $100, but the message will be more than $1 billion. So I left it on that note, and no response came from their side, that we will discuss it and then let it know. Before I was coming from New York to Delhi, I got a call that Ambassador Richard Verma would be receiving us when I come back, and he'll be extending that letter of greeting of peace from the United States President. And that gesture made headlines, and more than 50,000 articles were written about this aspect, not only in India, but global media took this opportunity to cherish and also to write about the positive sides of Indian spiritual traditions, which is acknowledged by the Western world. So these small gestures, which are part of the policy making or the people who are in position to influence the millions of people just by a small tweet, that will make a very, very important contribution. While I'm speaking here, I feel very honored that our work of taking this message to the masses had been made easy by the leadership, current leadership of India. And recently, 15 days back, we were all invited at Vigyan Bhavan, where King Abdullah II of Jordan gave a special remark on moderation. Some of our friends were also part of that gathering. And there again, Prime Minister Modi in his address to the gathering of all the Muslim think tanks, intellectuals from across India were gathered there. And he restated his intention of working towards all communities in India, where he said that he would like to see the Muslim youth holding a computer in one hand and holding the Quran in another hand. So these statements make a great deal in countering these narrations of ideological challenges that we all face. In the center of conflict in West Asia, or the cities in distant countries, in the remote villages of Africa that we just heard about, the problem, or around global regions, the terrorism is a daily threat that we all encounter. Each day brings us terrible news of horrifying images of schools turned into graveyard of innocence, prayers of gathering turned into funeral processions, a call of prayer or azan drowned by the sounds of explosions, of blood on the beach, massacres in the malls, smolderings on the cars on the street, of thriving cities ruined, priceless, heritage destroyed. Since the beginning of the century, tens of thousands of families have lost their loved ones due to this terrorist incident. And in a globally mobile world, one incident can claim citizens of many nations. Billions of dollars have been spent to counter these. But as the previous speakers have said, that this is not decreasing, it is just increasing. The ideological challenges has to be counter-narrative philosophies and spiritual values we have to put into the mainstream. This has to be part of our educative system, universities, schools, colleges, where the youth are interacting with each other. And the importance of active spiritual values life, and India has so much to offer to the world. Without taking much time, I'll just run through some important aspects of Indian spiritual traditions where we can be inspired by the message of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, where he spoke 800 years back, with your spiritual light, dissolve the clouds of discord and war, and spread goodwill, peace, harmony among the people. Let's remember the infinite humanism and the Sufi magnificence of Maulana Rumi, where he says, contain all human faces in your own, without any judgment of them. The sermons of Bible, where they ask us to be good, seek peace, and pursue it. Kabir Das Ji, in his observation that a river and its waves are one. Holiness, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, prayers that Lord, may everyone in the world prosper and be in peace. Let us be inspired by Swami Vivekananda, appealed against division and for people of the religion to hold the banner of harmony, not of dispute. In the past, we have seen that the Khanika, the Sufi centers of Baba Farid, and the yogis and the sadhus of different ashrams used to meet together, used to learn from each other the breathing practices, the meditative practices. A lot of sayings of Baba Farid are part of the Guru Granth Sahib and the concept of langar, so much of integration into the different spiritual traditions across India. And that is the greatest strength of India that we can share with the world, the unity in diversity, how we grow together, how we cherish and nourish these values. And the world has much to learn through this, and only through the leadership, when that can be amplified and it can make global news on the media, social media, just a tweet about it, that could really motivate the other world leaderships to be part of this narrative of sharing the spiritual traditions. India, again, when we talk about the syncretic culture, over 14.5 crore, the Sunni Sufi Muslim population connected with the Sufi Dargahs across India, and practices that would qualify them as Sufis to be believed one of the several reasons that would have firewalled India from the lure of Daesh, the extremist outfits who are attracting the youths from what we say is the Western world or the European countries. Just in 2016, with a report, about 1,600 French nationals are reported to be crossed over through Turkey to Syria to join the ISIS. Daniel Benjamin, who is the former counterterrorism coordinator at the US State Department, calls India one of the most amazing and encouraging story in the coexistence between Muslims and non-Muslims. At the same time, the Indian Muslim youths are not being attracted towards any radical callings from around the world. So being the second largest Muslim populated country in the world, it has resisted the group poisoning ideology. Daesh poisoning ideology has been resisted completely. Just maybe 20 names that come from South India, which are not even verified, have been reported or been kind of arrested for interrogation, who might have gone to Iraq to join this fringe element who are distorting. During the World Sufi Forum, a scholar from Morocco talked about the great Indian tradition, where he said India has attained a significant position through this conference, and also the traditions that has nurtured, that all the scattered Sufis were brought against under one platform to denounce the act of terrorism, and also a signed document against that ideology of terrorists by these 200 delegates from around the world was part of the declaration. So that was Sheikh Muhammad Idris from the mosque in Morocco. India's Sufi Muslim numbers are constantly under pressure from the hardline Salafi, which our general from Nigeria talked about, which is one of the ideology which encouraged the Boko Haram to attract the youth toward them. The Salafis, the Tablighi Jamaat, and the Wahhabi stream, the Ahl Hadith. Unlike in Pakistan, where Taliban suicide bombers have attacked Sufi shrines, and the Sufis in India, in particular, have been talked about to the Wahhabi circles or the Ahl Hadith Salafis. As I said, that one of my own classmates, coming from the Salafi background, told me that the place that you come from is not part of mainstream style. So, Alhamdulillah, we are thankful to God that in India, the violent extremism, because attacking these shrines or the integrations of the spiritual values are not yet been seen. And inshallah, in future also, because of the strong upholding of Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, will not let it happen. And that is one thing that we can share with the world very actively. So just with these few words about the inclusion and understanding, where the Prime Minister concluded his speech about the ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which was acknowledged by the Jordanian king when he said that it was wise, said by the PM, that the world is one family. We have a shared responsibility to each other and the world. Today's global war against terror is a fight by all moderates of all communities and all religion against extremism whose faith is hate and violence. We need to take back the airwaves and internet from the voices of hatred. Take fear seriously, but never distract us from the truth that faith brings humanity together. India and Indonesia are the success stories of understanding multi-faith and cherishing the spiritual heritage. I would just conclude, because there's a 2-minute video that I would like to show. That's how India has cherished and nurtured its spiritual traditions across centuries. And this is especially for the people of armed forces and also the global experts on terrorism. So in Ajmer Sharif, we have grown up with listening these phrases of India. Tera dayar hai dar salam ya Khaja, नई तजल्लियाँ हैं सुबह शाम या ख्वाजा, न फ़िक्र में न गमे जाम तेरे मस्तों को, तेरी एक निगाह से चलता है काम या ख्वाजा. So this is the land of India, where we don't have fear or sorrows. It's the benevolence of the saints and Sufis and the Bhakti traditions that we as Indians celebrate and nourish. Baza, baza, haranche asti baza, idargae ma, umid ast, I dargah ma na umidi nist. Come, 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 whoever you are. Our door is a door of hope. Our doors is not the door of despair. So that's what India is, a door of hope to the world. Thank you so much. We can have the video. Thank you so much.